Hi guys, it's Miss Jessica again. So this time on this video, we're going to be going over our coloring steps for our Derain project with the oil pastel. So you can see over here, your project should look similar to this one. We painted everything, and we've tried our best to fill in all the white spaces, but again, it's not going to matter so much because we're going to cover with a lot of oil pastel. So please remember during this video, if you need to pause to stop and finish something, please do. We're going to be doing a lot of oil pastel step that might require you to spend a little bit more time even after the video is over. So I want to encourage you guys just to sit back, relax, and let's go ahead and begin. All right, so we're going to need our projects and we're going to need some oil pastels. Now I have a wide range of colors. You might not have this many, and that's totally fine, but I want you guys to use what you do have. I'll try my best to give you a couple of different color options. All right, so we're going to begin in our sky and work our way down, so that way we don't get our hand all over the oil pastel and start smearing everything. So we're going to begin with our sky. Now for our sky, we have just painted it with the green, but we are also going to introduce yellows and a little bit of blue, not too much, just a tiny bit. And our inspiration is the actual photo of Derain. We saw that last time, and he uses lots of different kinds of color. Remember, he's a fauve artist, so his colors are not realistic, like you can see already we painted. So as we are continuing today, do not worry if your colors do not look correct, because they should not. And I want to encourage you guys to be very free in how you use your pastels. So our goal is not just to fill in every single space that we have. Our goal with our pastels today is to create lines and patterns and textures to make it look like his. He was coming out of an impressionist era, so his style mirrors that just a little bit. All right, so let's go ahead and just begin. What I want you guys to do first is grab the darkest green you have, whatever it might be. Mine is this kind of like hunter green. It's called deep green. And what we're going to do is a little bit of outlining to start. So we're going to begin up here at the top. Now your mountains might look a little different than mine, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to press hard, and I'm just going to kind of outline the top of the mountain. And again, I'm staying on my green background. So we're just going to focus in the green sky for right now. So I'm going to stop right about where this blue part begins. And as I'm coloring, I want to color it. I don't want to just draw one line. I really want to kind of keep coloring it. We're also going to do the same thing for the top of this mountain over here. And what you should be noticing is the oil pastel on the acrylics is super smooth. This is going to help us blend a lot and create a lot of really nice lines and textures and kind of a pattern shape. All right, so we're just going to do a little bit of outlining there, not too much. We might need this again, but I'm just going to kind of set it over here. Something else I want us to grab is a towel if you haven't already. Sometimes our pastels will have little like fuzzy things on it. You want to clean it, or it might be a different color. My example would be this one has got a lot of different colors in it. You just kind of wipe it very gently on a towel and it cleans it. All right, so now we're going to grab a medium green. Or maybe it's one of the lightest ones you have. I'm just going to grab this one here and this one. So if you are available to, just brush some of those away, get a medium one, kind of like this. It's called gray green. Please do. If not, go ahead and just grab the lightest one. I'm going to leave this here because I'll need it eventually. All right, so now with my medium, I'm just going to go ahead and start to color kind of on top and above my dark green. Now with oil pastels, they blend well. And our goal here right now is to color kind of in a direction coming outward. So imagine your lines are straight in the middle and they're, I guess, maybe more off to the side, and they're kind of spraying out like water. So on this half, on the left, I'm really going to angle my lines. And notice I'm not too worried about filling it all in. That green background is going to really help. I'm going to get about halfway and then I'll stop. And then on the other side, I'm just going to fill in the whole top part. But notice I'm going now more to the right. And I really want to create those line textures. That's my main goal for this part. All right, so once you kind of get to this place, we're going to take the same green you just used, no matter which one it is. We're going to kind of outline right on top of this blue part, not too high up, kind of in the middle. And again, no matter how you do this, it's going to look great. So if you kind of connected it together, awesome. If you just outline everything, go for it. So don't worry too much about that. I'm going to just color a little bit up. And I'm not really worried about where those lines are going or what they look like. So I'm just kind of scribbling it upwards a little bit, creating a look that I like. And then that's it for that green. Now, if you have a lighter green, go ahead and grab it. And you're just gonna kind of color now at the top of all the medium green. But if you don't, I want you guys to grab a white and you're just gonna color the white on top. You guys can also do both. So I'll probably just do that for the whole rest of today's. I'll use my lighter greens. All right, so I'm just gonna kind of color that on top there. And look how I'm kind of angling my lines out. Our center is gonna be about here and then a little bit on top there. Now, if you wanna go back, take a white. You can even add a little bit of the white on top. And you look how we want those lines. We wanna really see those lines coming through. Now the rest of it, you might be wondering what we're gonna do. So for this part, we're gonna introduce our yellows and just like a little bit, actually I think we're gonna save our blues for down here. So we're just gonna focus on our yellows. I think it'll just look really nice with our sky. So up here at the top, I want you guys to grab any yellow you have in a white. Now remember I said we're gonna have to clean. My white is super dirty from the green. White we're gonna use a lot today. So we do want to be careful, try not to break yours. Mine's already pretty small as is, so I just wanna make sure I'm not wasting too much of it. It likes to break. All right, so we're gonna take our yellow, and I just kind of want you to start to color the rest of the inside. You can even blend them together. Yellow and green blend very well. They're analogous colors. We kind of talked about that last time, which means they just look really good together because they're next to each other on the color wheel. So I'm just gonna start to fill in most of it, not all of it. I'll leave a little at the top. But notice how my lines over on the right are kind of going in that direction, and my lines on the left are going out that way too. So I've colored pretty much the whole thing, and I want to use my white now, and I'm going to use that to help the top. And I'm going to create these lighter parts. Now look, it just blended, and I love that. I want to keep it. If you get a little dark green somewhere in there, that's awesome. So I'm just going to kind of go over and use my white. Oh, look, I already broke it, so you got to be careful with these. But I'm just gonna kind of use that to create a little bit of a lighter look on some of those parts. So now what I want you guys to do is go ahead and look through the top. If you wanna change anything, go for it. If you wanna add maybe more green, you can. But you know, this is just generally where we want those colors to go. I might add a little bit more of this darker color. We always wanna have some good contrasts in there. But next we're gonna move on to our mountains. All right, so now we're gonna need our reds and oranges and some of our blues. So we're gonna begin with our blues. So grab the darkest one you have. For me, it's this guy here. It's called Prussian Blue. I really like that name. And we're gonna start with this one. And we're gonna do a little more outlining, just kind of like we did with the top as well. So on our first blue spot here, I'm just gonna outline the top of it. And I'm trying not to go in my green. At this part, I do want to keep the sky and my mountains separate. And I'll just do a little bit at the bottom here. But that's probably about all I want to do. I'm going to color a little bit more so it's easy to blend. And then once you finish that, we're just going to add a little more outlining to this little spot over here. And I'm going to pretty much outline the whole thing. And then this will kind of help me redraw any lines that maybe got a little covered by another color of paint. But we are going to be just a little bit careful for this because we're going to start getting into complementary colors, which we kind of learned about last time, which do not blend well. So I got to be careful with that. Now that's all I'm going to do for my darkest blue. We might need it again, so I'm just going to leave it there. And I'm going to grab a medium and a light blue. So for me, my medium is going to just be the next one down. But for a lot of you guys, maybe you only have a lighter blue. Go ahead and grab that. We can also use some white today too. But I'm going to use my medium or whatever next color down you have. And we're just going to start to fill the rest of the blue in. Again, I'm not too worried about getting all the white spots because I already colored it, or excuse me, painted it with the acrylic paint last time. So now I'm just going to kind of make sure I don't have any like weird edges coming through. Make sure to leave that little pinkish red space in the middle. We want that. So I'm just going to keep going. Try not to get in my tree because it will turn more of a green. Definitely don't want that. All right, so now we're at this point, and I want you guys now to, when you're done, either take a light blue or a white, and we're just gonna go back and we're gonna add a little more of that on top. And I'm curving the direction the mountain is going. So for me, it's coming up this way, notice the flow, and I'm just gonna kind of keep it towards the bottom and add a little bit at the top. I really got to press a little lighter for me. I keep breaking these. So you just got to be careful. The harder you press, the more likely it's going to break, especially if you don't have paper on. So notice mine didn't have any paper and it snapped real easily. So I do recommend not taking all the paper off, kind of keep it on, and maybe just rip as you go. Helps save the pastel as well. All right, now I'm going to add quite a bit in this one too. Really blending it. Now, if you're noticing like me, I really can't get it that light because I already added my medium blue. So I'm just going to take my white and I can go back on there and I can add, and I want to really add some lines. So I might just kind of draw some things on there. Now for this little spot down here, we haven't really touched it, and we're going to keep it medium and a light blue or white. So I'm going to take my medium back out, and I'm just going to outline the top. And then I'm going to color the rest of it on the inside with my light blue or with our white, whichever one you might have. And that's it. That one's not going to be as dark of a space, so I don't need to worry about coloring that in too much. All right, so at this point we should have our sky and the blue done. So if you need a pause to go back and watch anything or complete something, please do that now. But what we're going to be doing next is our oranges and reds for the mountains. All right, so let's go ahead. Now, if you have any like little flakes, don't wipe it with your hand because it'll get everywhere and smear your picture. If you have a trash can, just shake it into it. I'm just gonna kind of dump mine on the table for right now, and then I'll clean those up later, so just be careful. All right, so for this, we're gonna need a couple different colors, but we're gonna begin with a dark orange. Now for this, if you don't have a dark orange, go ahead and just grab a red, works totally fine as well, but I have a darker orange. Called vermilion, so I'm going to use that one. I'm going to do some more outlining. I'm going to turn my paper real fast so I don't smear it with my hand, and I'm going to outline the top of the left mountain, being very careful because my red, or I should say orange and green, they are more complementary. If you think about red and green are complementary colors, so I want to make sure that I keep that separate. All right, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to outline that whole part there so I can see it. You might have lost that line when you painted it, so now we're just going to kind of put it back on. I'm also going to do the same thing for the top right, and that's kind of where these little like pointed parts are. So I'm just going to be careful kind of coming in and repointing those. It might mix with your green a little, and it creates this nice dark color, which won't necessarily look bad because we do want some contrast in there, but just be careful if you need to clean that a little bit every time like I did. Now once you've kind of outlined, I'm going to take the same color, whatever you might have, and I'm going to add lines in my mountain, coming down. And the reason I want to do lines is I'm going to start to introduce some new technique here with some different colors, and I'm going to do the same thing on the right, but watch, I'm going to angle mine the opposite way, coming down. Maybe just a little bit in between. So once you're done with that, go ahead and keep working. We're going to hop back to the left mountain, and we're going to do side-to-side lines at the top. Kind of curving those as we go. Adding quite a bit. We can even do the same thing for this little bottom part, maybe not as much. All right. Kind of bring this down between my trees a little more. If you want to kind of go back and color some of that in, you can. So that's going to be those darker parts for our mountain. And now we're going to start to get a little lighter. So my next color would be more of just a regular orange, if you have it. Now, if you, for everyone else too, you should have used more of a red, and now you're just going to grab your orange. And we're going to go back, and then the same spots, I'm going to have you guys add more lines kind of side to side. You can even color it a little bit. Now for me, it's a little hard to see that difference because I already used like a dark orange. But for some other you guys, if you use red, you might notice it a little bit more. So either way, that's not a problem. I'm just going to keep adding those in, kind of blending it as I go. And same thing here at the top. Still leaving those spaces. I don't want to color out too much more. Just kind of now blending everything. And we can kind of use this to go back now and outline the rest to show that contrast, but it's just going to be a little bit lighter, you can see from our first color. I'll do a little bit of outlining in this one here, not too much, just maybe at the top, do underneath. You can just kind of have fun with your lines and your textures. Maybe add a little more under there as well. So I really want to just add these lines. I don't really want to color anything anymore as we go. Now the rest of this is going to be with a lighter orange. So for me, this one's actually called yellow orange, but for everyone else, if you want to just grab a yellow, you can if you don't have a yellow orange. And this should be the lightest color. So now what I want to really do is just keep adding those lines, but everywhere else. And I can even bring that back on top and blend that in a little bit more. I'm just going to kind of color this side, maybe even go back in and color in any spots that are left. But you do want to see this texture that's kind of being created with these lines. And I'm doing that on everything else. So now I just want to want you to go back through your image and just continue to add these lines everywhere on the whole rest of the mountain. Again, it's okay if there's some of that pink left in there from the background. That's why we painted it, so that we can have some of that left showing through. All right, so again, we're just kind of filling in the rest of it, still adding those lines. I'm just gonna go back through and I wanna add more. I'm gonna just kind of color some in. Notice how I'm not really worried like, oh, was that a correct line to put? No, I don't want you guys to focus on, is that correct? I want you to focus on, does the color look like it's in the right spot? That's gonna be the important things to learn about for our lesson today. All right, so as you're finishing up too, afterwards, take that white again, and you can just go back through and I wanna see lines. Only in the orange. So now I don't want you to like blend anything. We're really just gonna bring in those lines, just kind of at the bottom of everything, not towards the top. You might have to clean your pastel every once in a while because once it builds up on there, you won't really be able to see the white coming through. And I would make those lines just a little bit shorter. I don't want it to be too long. Okay. So that's it for our mountains. Now again, it's just gonna depend on the artist. We're all gonna have different products at the end. So maybe you wanted to go back and smooth everything out more. Maybe you have more of the paint showing through. That really is going to be up to you. Remember our artists that we looked about with Derain, they were Impressionist style, but they still drew very well and painted it beautifully. They just didn't always use the right colors. So your style can be just a little bit different than mine or from the maybe other people that you'll see in the class as well. All right, so we're gonna start, actually skip our trees for right now. We're gonna kind of work on this background mountain right behind our trees, just a little bit too. We're gonna kind of bring some of that down a little bit more for the mountain as well. So actually grab out your lightest color. Now, we're gonna be putting it on this yellow part right behind the tree. And if you did yellow for your lightest color up here, actually I want you to grab orange. And then for everyone else, I want you to grab the lightest orange you can, your yellow orange. So pretty much we're all gonna use orange for this. Let me keep it this way for right now. Right underneath, behind this tree, we're gonna add lines with this lighter color. And I wanna see that yellow coming through for the paint. I don't really wanna hide it. So go ahead, it's right behind the tree. You should see a Sharpie line that's kind of telling you what to do, where to go. And we're just gonna add some of those, and you can see that transition from dark to light. But the rest we'll do with our other colors. All right, so once you kind of get that, we're gonna now do yellows and greens. So grab a yellow and a dark green, the darkest one you have. And then if you have a medium, go ahead and do that too. But otherwise, we'll just focus on our dark and our yellow for right now. But medium might help you do a little bit of blending. So I'll show you guys both. I'm gonna begin with my dark green. And we're gonna focus right here on this yellow part behind the trees at the bottom. Don't go past the white line that you should still have in your paper. So we're gonna use our dark green. Let's do a little outlining right at the top on the right. And then we're just gonna kind of add lines. Now for this one, we wanna see the yellow through. Our yellow pastel is just gonna kind of help us put that back in if we lose a little bit, but we wanna see that paint now really showing through on the bottom, bring in those lighter colors. We're gonna do the same thing kind of on the left down here, but we don't really have anywhere to outline because our tree is there. So we're just gonna add lines, kind of going in mostly the same direction, but kind of bring in some different directions as well, different line textures. And then we're gonna kind of just make them, we're just gonna spread them out a little bit. And then we're gonna go back through and that's gonna help us. So right now I'm just gonna kind of spread it along. Think about grass. I'm gonna kind of turn mine now. Maybe some areas are a little darker. I'm gonna have a little darker right here than down below. I'll put a little bit right in between these trees, so I know that's also part of this grass texture. Add a little bit more dark maybe by my tree. What I'm doing is I'm kind of just thinking about that picture that we saw of Derain, and I'm just using my pastels to help me create a texture for grass. Now, it's kind of our main thing. If you have a medium green, go ahead and grab that now. If not, go ahead and wait just a second. But with the medium green, you can just go back in and add a little bit more, and it'll just kind of give you a different value, and it'll kind of blend some of that darker green. So I'm not adding too much, just pretty much in the same place as the dark green. Now, if you don't have this, what you can do, I don't recommend using that light green because it's going to just be a little bit too bright for this section. We're going to just jump straight to yellow. And for the yellow, it's going to help us blend. I'm not going to add too much up here. I kind of like the dark with the light. It's going to help us blend the rest of it with the paint. So I'm just going to take my yellow, and I'm just going to not blend all of it, just a little bit, kind of scribbling my yellow in the empty yellow spots. Now, hopefully your paint is a little lighter than mine. So what you'll have is actually you'll see the yellow pastel better than the yellow paint. But I'm still letting my paint show through a little bit. Now, if yours is a little darker, that's fine. Your yellow is just going to help blend. But really, this is all I want to do with my yellow. I really don't want to blend very much of it. This is a very freeing part where it's just the grass behind our trees. So go ahead, have fun with that. If you want to add a little more, a little less, you're more than welcome to, but we're just going to kind of keep it that way, for at least for me, for this step. All right, now please make sure if you need to pause, do that now. We're going to be moving on to the bottom, and then we're going to do our trees for last. Or maybe we'll jump around a little bit, depends on our colors that we're going to use next. So we're going to jump down here to this white stripe. This is actually our river, so we're going to need some purples, maybe a little bit of blue if you want to bring that in, and I'm going to bring a little red into mine. I'm really excited because it's going to make a really nice look to it, kind of more faubist. All right, so for purples, just kind of grab whatever purple you might have. If you don't have purple, then just grab blue, preferably something maybe a little bit different than that top part, but that's where the red will kind of come in for me at least and change that up. So I'm going to grab this kind of lighter purple. Whatever purple you have works, and rivers flow, so we're going to add some lines, short strokes showing the flow of the river, the movement, and I'm just going to do that all along the bottom. And I'm just kind of just spreading around. Some are a little close, some are a little far. I'm not too worried about that at all. And we want that white to show through. Now you would do the same thing if you had your blue instead. You could even bring in maybe darker values. I could grab a darker purple, and I could just kind of intermix that in there too. Or you could do purple and then do a blue. Would look nice as well if you want to bring in a little bit more of that too. I want a lot of the white to show through, so don't cover that up too much. And then now I'm going to take my red. What my red's going to do is it's going to become those darker shades. So we learned about complementary and analogous colors. So purple and red are closer on the color wheel. And when they mix together, it starts to get just a little bit dark. So I'm not going to add red everywhere, just kind of along the top and middle. And I'm just going to add a couple lines, more so on top of the purple. I'm not really worried about it standing out on its own. I want it to kind of mix. I'm going to add just a little bit at the top of the river on both sides. Still going in the same direction, showing that flowing movement. And then I'll kind of bring it more into the middle of the river here. Maybe it's where the trees are starting to meet. And hopefully you can kind of see that they're mixing and becoming a little darker, which is what we want. But it's still lots of white paper, still lots of purple showing through. So I wouldn't add too much. And that's it we're going to do for the river. We're actually going to keep that very simple. We're going to let the white paper really do its thing at the bottom. Last thing is, for this part at least, for the grass is down here, and we're going to do our rock too in just a second. But we're going to keep a lot of that white showing. It's going to look kind of like this background. So we're going to need our greens back, same greens as before, and our yellow. So whatever green you use, whether it was 1 or 2, grab that out. Get my medium as well. And I'm going to create the texture of grass. I'm actually going to start with my medium one, but this is just whatever dark green you have. And we're just going to add shorter lines that are going more vertical up and down, but you can kind of have them maybe be at an angle across, because grass kind of works in different directions. So we're going to add quite a few up at the top. It can go up and over this line to touch the river, because that's what grass does. So I'm going to add quite a bit of that towards the top and under the trees. Maybe there's more of a shadow there on the ground. So take that darker green, whatever it is, and you really, again, want that yellow paper to shine through. Now for the rest of it, I'm just gonna kind of pick and choose. Maybe there's more of a shadow by this tree, and right here in the middle. Maybe I'll just have a couple coming through there. By my rock, I definitely want some. I'm getting a little too long strokes. I would shorten those up a little bit. Kind of just doing little patches of grass. So kind of just go around. I think I'll just keep it there. Keep going, but if you want to grab a darker green, if you have it, now I would just add a very small amount of the dark green. You can just kind of add it in little places that you want, maybe more along the riverbed, keeping it not separate, but with the lighter green as well that we just did. So this is an optional step if you have a darker green to use. But we don't want our colors to be that light green like you see here. This is a little too neon. So try not to use that one. If you did, it's okay, but try to cover it up maybe with a little bit darker of a green. And then we're gonna really bring in our yellows. Now most of this is just going to be very quick yellow strokes up and down, or even kind of coloring it. And you wanna like let that blend, still allowing the paint to show through with the yellow, because that'll just help the color stay a little more solid. And I'm just gonna kind of do that for all of the grass. And these can be longer strokes because you're not really gonna necessarily see these more individually. Careful in the red. I'm getting mine mixed a little bit up, so I'm just gonna be careful. But again, I just want it to allow that green to blend together and still be the yellow background. You can even kind of scribble it if you need to, kind of color it. Again, these are just like we're letting the lines kind of come through. So this is what we're gonna be doing for just the bottom. So if you wanna just pause, go ahead and finish that up. Add some by my rock. All right, and now we're gonna move into our tree trunks. I forgot about those guys. We already painted them pink, so I kind of just forgot I needed to do it again. But what we're gonna do is bring in more of reds. We're gonna do a little purple again. So grab your red. We haven't done much of that. I gotta clean mine a little bit. We haven't done much red. We're pretty much gonna just color the whole tree trunks in. What you could do, since you already did a little bit pink, you can keep a little bit of it. And what the pink will do is it just kind of doesn't make the red so light. It darkens it a little bit. So imagine if you colored red on white paper, it's gonna look a little more pink because pink and red and white make pink. But with the background being this already reddish tint, it's gonna make it look more of a red color and less of a pink, which is kind of cool to see. So I'm just gonna kind of go ahead and fill these in. So if you guys wanna go ahead, do that as well, you could pause the video. I'll probably just do one tree and show you guys what to do after you fill it in. And then I'll go ahead and work on the second tree, maybe just a little bit later. But I'm just gonna focus on one at a time to make sure I show you guys everything. All right, so we do wanna add a little bit of shading and we're gonna bring in those purples. Now, something that artists would do, especially during this time if they're focusing on color, is color swatches. So what happens is, what does the eye do when those colors meet? And so we're gonna find out right now. We kind of showed a little bit of that in our water with the purple. So we're gonna bring the purple back. I recommend probably grabbing a darker one. And we're gonna add a little bit of shading on our trees. Now for this, I would just choose one half of the tree. So for me, I'm gonna do the top half. And I'm just gonna add a little bit of outlining. I'm really just coloring it not very nicely. And that just means not perfect. I'm not worried if it makes perfect lines in there. So that's actually all I'm gonna do for my tree. Just kind of darkens it a little bit. So I want you to do the same thing for the second tree. So color everything with your red again. And then I want you to take the purple and you can do the same shading. You can do the different shading. Maybe it's on the top or the bottom of all your tree branches now instead of the top. That's gonna be up to you. Go ahead and pause if you need to finish your second tree, because right now I'm actually gonna go ahead and show you guys the leaves. All right, I'm just gonna focus on this one because we finished those tree trunks, at least I did. And I'm gonna now bring in my tree leaves. Now this part is gonna be kind of a long process that I want you to take a lot of time on as well. So what I'll do is I'll do most of this tree, and then I'm gonna allow you guys just to go ahead and pause the video or just rewatch that again and do the second tree as well, because that's going to be the end of the video for today. So let's go ahead, do a little bit of a rock before we forget, because I almost did. He's so hiding down there. So grab some different greens and some different yellows. I'm going to bring in some darker yellows now. So I grab my dark green, my medium, and this like gold color. It's called yellow ochre, but it's a gold pretty much. I'll call it that. And we're just going to add some lines down here in our rock. I'm going to curve my lines because my rock is rounded. And I'm just going to think about where would that shading go, kind of towards the bottom, maybe a little at the top. I'll bring in my medium green as well. And then this yellows can kind of act like a different rock texture or even the highlights of the rock. So I'm just going to kind of go ahead and add a little bit of that as well. Now it's going to mix. So what you could do if you don't want it to mix, I'll show you on a separate piece of paper, is when you take, this one's not tinted so your colors might change, but you could always, add your lines, spread them apart like that. Maybe don't even do a medium green, but you could just add not very many, and then you can take the yellow and just try to fit right in between the rest. Again, it might still mix, but at least it'll be a little separate. Or you could do the opposite, where you add your lighter first, and then you can add your darker next to it, so they don't blend too much together. So it's just kind of up to you what style you would like to go with today for the trees, especially, and the rock we just did. All right, so you guys can just keep doing that. If you're losing your rock with your grass, take your dark green and just do a little bit of outlining. Don't do the whole thing, just the bottom, and I did a little bit on the side, and I'll just kind of make it pop out a little bit more. Now for the trees, we're going to keep these colors, greens and that light yellow, and we're also going to bring in some blues. So I recommend grabbing at least two, maybe your dark and your light. I'm going to do my super dark one that I had before for the top and more of a medium. Not going to bring in too much light. I also have this really nice aqua color, so if you have something similar, go for it. But if you don't, you could use that lighter blue. It would kind of take the place. So those are going to be my main colors. If you want to pause the video and kind of look at these, I'll hold them up a little bit higher. You don't have to use these exactly. These are just going to be an option for you guys to use today. All right, so let's go ahead and just work on our textures here. There's no wrong way to do this. So I'm just going to show you the technique we want to go with today, and then you guys can kind of work on that on your own. This will be the last thing I show you. So we're going to need our yellows and greens for branches that are coming closer to us, and our darker blues and greens for the branches that are farther away, a little pushed back. So I'm going to start with my lighter ones that are close. I'm going to use my yellow, or my goldish color, and on just a couple of these, I'm going to draw kind of like sunburst lines coming out, really spreading those apart because I'm going to fill things in between. So I'm just going to kind of just add these lines everywhere. And again, I'm just choosing a couple branches that I want to be my ones that are closest to me. Now, if you notice that your hand's getting really messy, mine is, and it's smearing, take a clean towel, open it up. Mine's super dirty, but just grab a clean one. Lay it down and put your hand on top. Try not to move the rag because it will smear everything, but at least your hand will get messy and it won't really mess up your pastels. Now again, use a clean one because then the color will get all over. But I'm going to be okay, so I'm not too worried about it. And I'll add a little more here. Now what you could do is if you want to, you could do both trees at the same time, or just work on one, and then if you're like, oh, I want to change something, you could do something a little different. But I'm just going to focus on this tree for this video. After this yellow, I didn't add too much. I'm going to bring my greens in. Now I'm going to go with a more of a medium or a light green. So if you want to grab this color, go for it. I'm just not going to use it today because I have this medium one. And I'm going to add that right next to it with it. So it's just a little bit lighter of a green for my tree. So again, no real right or wrong way to do this. Fob artists, their main focus was their colors. So that's why I'm not too worried if our lines look the same. I'm just kind of showing you what you could do. I'm going to take my medium and I'm just going to kind of spread that around now a lot of my other branches. Not all of them, just a couple, just kind of bringing that green out because I'm going to transition into a different color set with some darker colors now. I'm gonna do maybe a little outlining there with my branches so I kind of fill some of that in. And again, I don't need to worry, I can let the yellow show through on the paper there. All right, I'm putting my colors up here so I know I used those ones. Next, we're going to start to do some blues. Before we even grab any greens, that's gonna be for a little later. I'm gonna do my medium blue, not my lightest one. So if maybe you only have one blue that's dark, go for it, just grab that one. And what we're gonna do with this is we're just gonna start to work on the rest of our tree. And we're gonna let our leaves go in whatever direction we want those to. So I'll probably do a couple going this way. And then I can even have some going down because tree leaves kind of go in all different directions. Probably I'll have them go up for that part because it was a little more pointed. You can do a little more curved. And I'm gonna start to let it mix in with that medium green, just a little bit, not too much. So I can have them go this direction now on this part of the tree. So I'm just kind of adding a little bit in there. Maybe some here in the middle. Let that mix a little bit more. And please let it go outside of your lines. You want it to be, fluffy, fuzzy tree. You don't want it to just be this kind of weird outline of a tree. It will mix with the colors around it, but I think that will look really cool. All right, so once you're done, you feel like you have enough, you're going to move into a little bit more darker blues and greens. I'm gonna start with my blue, and I'm gonna focus on my parts that I want to have some shading. The blue is gonna help me know, okay, this is where my darker colors will go, and the green, I'll show you. Once I put my green, it will darken the blue a lot more. So again, I wanna do lines. I'm not too worried about coloring things in, but it's gonna darken that area a lot more. I can even bring some of that green down a little bit every once in a while. So actually go back to, if you wanna do, if you wanna do all the light blue first you can, or you can kind of mix back and forth like I just did. But I'm gonna just kind of do the tops, and then I'll kind of do some down here in the middle because there's gonna be some different, shading with your tree. So if you want to kind of follow with me, you guys can always just pause and look to see where I put my darker lines, rewind it just to kind of notice, okay, where did she move next? Or just kind of choose wherever you want for your shading. Now my two blues are actually really similar, so I'm probably just going to use a lot of this dark green to help show where those darker places will go. So again, my blues are pretty close in color. Now I have a lot of the yellow coming through on my tree, and I'm not worried about that at all. I like it a lot. I'm gonna let that shine through. Now what you could do is you could go back. You could even take some of this color. If you notice you're losing some of your lighter colors, you could bring that in again. It might blend it a little more, so I just want you to be aware of that. My last color is this teal, and I'm just gonna have some fun. I'm just gonna kind of place it in random spots where maybe the green would be a little bit brighter. And then for you, that might be a light blue. So you could bring some of that light blue in, and I'm really just kind of spreading it in different places all around. Maybe you want it to show a lot, maybe you don't really want it to show that much, or maybe you did it and you're like, I really don't like that, then you can just go ahead and do something completely different color. All right, now I just want to point out one thing down here. It might get really close in your color. So I did a lot of greens. I'm going to push more blue. You could even bring in some lighter blues if you need to. And that might help divide that color up a little bit more. Definitely put it somewhere else then, so it's not just this one random spot of light blue. But really have some fun with the way that tree looks. All right, so this is gonna be the end of our video. But before I say goodbye to you guys, I want you to go ahead and do the same thing for your second tree. So go ahead, if you wanna rewatch the video, you can do everything in the exact same place, or you guys can switch it up and have fun with where you do put it. Now, what I want you to do is when you're done, go back up to the top and things we already did. So stuff that is closer to us, usually is more detailed because it's closer, we can see it. Things that are far away, they lose that detail. So that's why things up here were a lot more smooth. Stuff on the bottom was a little bit more detailed, like grass, tree leaves, and branches. But what you can do is go back. You can always add more lines and textures, maybe to make it match a little bit better. So for your sky, you could go back with that darker green, and you can just start to add maybe some dark green more in the middle, change directions of the lines. You could put some more back where it was here. So I don't want you to be afraid. If you want to go back and kind of rework some spots, please do. Your limit is only your imagination. You can even kind of look up Derain's pictures and see how he does some of his lines with the colors that you can mix together, which would look really cool, really nice as well. You can even bring back a little bit more of the yellow, maybe really kind of push that a little bit farther in there. If it covered a lot of it and you can't see the yellow, not a problem. You just won't have as much yellow, totally fine. All right, but this is going to be the end. All right, so everyone, thank you guys so much for an awesome class. I hope you guys learned a lot about oil pastels because we really focused on that. Please go ahead and make sure you finish everything in your project as well. I'll have my final product ready to post for when we do this a little bit in our class together. So thank you so much. My name is Miss Jessica and I hope to see you guys later. Bye.